Welcome back, friends. We are journeying to the Hellmouth yet again this week. I am one half of your dynamic duo, Sabrina Hannon.
And I'm the other half, Jasmine Heron. This week, we are talking about two episodes, I Only Have Eyes for You and Go Fish.
Yes.
I like your little eyes. You're like, I only have eyes for you. And you're batting these beautiful eyes at me.
Yeah, I always love I Only Have Eyes for You. It's problematic, obviously, but I enjoy it so.
It has some weird catharsism to it. And it's another one that's written by Marty Noxon. And yeah, she's just awesome. She's wonderful. And I feel like she has written some very powerful episodes.
Mhm.
What's My Lines, part 1 and 2. Surprise. She kind of steps more and more into this, I think, as it goes on, and has written some of my other favorites.
Yeah. Now, would you say I Only Have Eyes for You is a Monster of the Week episode?
No, I mean, like,
Monarch?
maybe Monarch, but I really feel like it's an arc episode because this is really the like catharsis moving on of Buffy emotionally. You know, she's just dealt with Jenny Calendar's death, basically.
Yeah.
And then she was sick, but like this is now she's back on her feet and she has got to deal with the fact that like her honey is killing people.
Mm-hmm. And is hoping to kill her.
Mm-hmm.
After he tortures her for a bit, as one does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do not think that this is I would put it at Monarch to arc. Yeah, so let's dive on in.
So we start off at the Bronze, and it's kind of, you could do this like zoom up thing where you see Willow in her cute little rainbow sweater, and she's staring up at the scaffolding, and then it like pans up, and there's Buffy on the catwalk in these like beautiful shiny gold pants, and Benjamin Straley comes over and is like, yeah, we were in math class last year. And like, he has noticed her because he could tell exactly where she sat and she has no clue who he is.
And it's also like from Willow and her staring and then her approaching Buffy afterwards. This guy either asked Willow about Buffy or Willow sent him towards her. I would guess the first. Like, no, she's not seeing anyone. She's right up there.
Yep.
But yeah, he asks her to ask him to the Sadie Hawkins dance, and she was just like, no. And I mean, he's an attractive guy. He's whatever, but Buffy's not looking to date, and she also definitely realizes that anyone that she dates is going to be prime murder material for Angelus.
Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if they were still doing Sadie Hawkins dances when you were in high school. I remember one my sophomore year, and it was actually the first dance that I went to with a date. In my sophomore year, and it was our Valentine's Day dance, but our Valentine's Day dance was a Sadie Hawkins dance. But yeah, so the Sadie Hawkins dance, you know, it was actually.
Did you ask anyone to yours? You just like glanced over that.
Yes. At that point, I'd been dating a boy for a couple of months, and we had wanted to go to homecoming together, but I wasn't actually allowed to go on dates or with dances in high school. Like my dad was very conservative, he is Arabic, of Arabic descent, and like from the Middle East. And my mom's from Scotland, and I was like raised in the United States, but he still had kind of that like cultural, like keep guys and girls apart thing. So my mom, who like went on lots of dances and dates when she was younger, was like, oh yeah, it's totally normal. But as the oldest daughter, I had to fight these fights. And so I was invited to homecoming by this guy, and I had to say no because like my dad like put his foot down, and I went with like another girlfriend, and ended up spending homecoming with the boy anyways. Like, but then by the time like Valentine's Day came around, I was officially allowed. Like we had duped it out, and my mom was like, okay, enough's enough. She's in high school. This is what high school girls do. They go to dances with boys. Like, although later I went to dances with girls. So,
Full circled. So I'm assuming your dad didn't have a problem letting your older brothers go to dances with girls, or
so my
also I can't imagine Mike getting down and funky.
well, he didn't go to his prom, I don't think, but he had an online girlfriend, and he went to her prom.
Okay.
So like he did that high school thing, but it was, Mike was not a just go to dances person. But my brother Gabe was, and he went on, to lots of dances and had the, the drama of who do I ask? And do I just go with a friend, or do I ask a girl that I really like? And then drama. But
As he braided his hair.
actually, as we got older, my brother and I ended up going like to dances as part of groups together. Like it'd be like several of us all together. We actually went to my first prom. We all rented a limo together, like he and his date and me and my date, and yeah. I think there was 8 of us in the limo, and
I still remember being very upset that you were not able to go to the prom. I went to your senior prom, yeah, and you were not there, and I remember being heartbroken because I knew almost no one, because I was a sophomore, yeah. But
yeah, I went to Greece for my senior prom, and just I missed out on a ton of stuff that year, because it was like a 2-week trip, for a family wedding. My family is very international, so there was a family wedding and everyone was going, and so I went, and I actually missed all of my AP exams, and I was only allowed to take 2 of them, like makeup. They said you can pick 2 to take as a makeup, and otherwise. So I spent a year on all these AP classes, and then could only take 2 of the exams.
That's upsetting. But back into the Buffy.
Back into the Buffyverse.
out of the Jasmine verse into the Buffyverse.
Which is more important. I'm sure everybody wants to hear my backstory, right? But
I enjoy talking about it.
What?
I enjoy talking about it.
The listeners can leave in comments like, yes, more. No, just stick with Buffy. But yeah, so back into the Buffyverse. Buffy has like specifically said to Willow that she's rejected it because the last time she let her passions loose, she turned her boyfriend into a demon, like a soulless demon, and who's now killing her friends.
And I love how Willow's like, but that wasn't your fault. And then she's like, well, I mean, yes, but not really. I love Willow.
She got so punished for sex. Buffy, not Willow. Like, she gets so punished for sex. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Pregnancy. Except if you're Buffy, and the worst thing that can happen is that your honey turns into a vampire and starts killing everybody.
Right? Yeah, and like, still gets to wear your boyfriend's face.
Yep.
Oh, so
So then she goes to the school to meet up with Giles, and she sees a male student like yelling at a female student, and basically they're having what sounds like a lover's quarrel, and then he pulls out a gun to shoot her, and Buffy like tackles him, and the gun skitters away and like poofs out in like black smoke.
and the janitor also runs over because he's catching this as well. For once, there's actually, you know, a janitor with the janitorial mop and everything, and not just the cart hanging around unattended. The one person who actually should be there at night is there doing his job. But the two students, they do not remember anything. They weren't even fighting beforehand. And they don't remember what happened. And Buffy is reading this guy the riot act because he was about to kill his girlfriend, and both of them are like, what has happened? And that's when the janitor's like, there's no gun. And so then it goes through the whole like screen credits. There we go, the opening sequence.
We have finished the cold open, and we're through the credits, and we come up to Snyder, who is like, this is somehow your fault. Like, it is my job to look at the facts objectively and thoroughly until I figure out how this is all your fault.
And Buffy is like, what in the world? As is the like watcher at home. Like, we're all just like, no, Snyder, no. But so as he is giving Buffy a hard time, he gets, you know, called away because a vegan has strapped himself to the snack machine. And again, and he is just not having it. So Snyder tells her to stay and to sit down because he's not finished with her. He marches out, and so Buffy's sitting there, and off of the shelf comes a yearbook, just like bloop. And it was a very thin yearbook, it seemed. And it was from 1955. Yeah.
Yep.
1955. So she just puts it back onto the shelf without thinking about it, like, oh yeah, sure, this is the Hellmouth, and a book just fell off the shelf. Perhaps I should look at it. Nope. I'm just going to kindly put it back.
Yeah. And so I guess Sadie Hawkins dances were a bigger thing back then. It started off, like, it was introduced in a daily strip in 1937. And people, like, who read the comic strip were like, oh yes, this is a thing that we should do. So 30s to 50s.
Yeah, I feel like they don't happen anymore. You don't even really hear them mentioned in film and stuff anymore because it's 2020, and even like by the time I got to high school, it wasn't happening, and it wasn't unusual for girls to, you know, people weren't necessarily going to dances with significant others. They were often going with friends of the same gender or different genders, or and like, especially now, the idea of like girls having to ask boys, not everyone is attracted to boys.
Yep.
They're just not.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, like, when I was in high school, this was early 2000s. This was 20 years ago. So, and, like, I think, like, by the time you hit high school, they weren't really doing it anymore. So, you know, around 20 years ago, it was in its dying gasps.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely something I've noticed. I haven't seen it referenced in, like, a TV show or anything recently either.
Apparently, this is their first Sadie Hawkins dance since 1955 in the show. They're like, this is our first Sadie Hawkins dance. Like, we're doing it again. The last time we did it, someone died. Like, so we stopped.
And Cordelia is very upset that there's a Sadie Hawkins dance happening, but not because someone had been murdered, because she thinks that this is garbage, that obviously the boy should ask the girl and they should pay.
Yeah.
They should pay. That's the big thing. So Cordelia is pissed and, you know, fighting that fight. And I
We
think,
go to
oh, well,
Willow.
before that happens, though, Buffy is in her class where they're talking about the New Deal.
Yep.
And she falls asleep, as one may very well do if you have a teacher that sounds like Ben Stein talking about the New Deal. And she's back in 1955, and there is an attractive male student who is wearing a varsity jacket talking to an attractive female teacher. We see this again, and it's very clear that there's like something going on between them, like with the, not just because she lent him a book, that's innocent enough, but like the lingering of hands and like the weird touching of fingers and like the breathy voice. Not quite like that, but and then of course, you know, someone goes to walk in and they withdraw their hands real fast, which is a dead giveaway. So Buffy is having her premonition. They're not, it's not a premonition dream. It's like a, because it's happened.
Yeah.
So
So
she's
I mean, she has psychic dreams and prophetic dreams, but I guess this is more like in the movie they talk about Buffy having dreams of the past, of past lives. They don't really talk about her past life dreams.
but her past lives, not
Yeah, her
other
past lives.
people.
But her other dreams are more dreams that come true in the future. I guess this is just her being magically, psychically linked
To this guy, yeah, because they recognize each other's pain. Yeah, but
so as she's watching, all of a sudden the teacher, as he's writing, has written on the blackboard, "Don't walk away from me, bitch," and bitch is underlined, as he was underlining things to the New Deal.
Yeah. And
like,
all of his students start laughing. He is horrified, and Buffy's like, "That's weird." Like you can see it on her face, like,
I just heard this. I just heard this recently. This is, you know. So then we have Willow and Giles talking. Willow is still teaching class, taking over from Miss Calendar, and she's been looking into a bunch of sites that Janet Calendar had like saved on paganism and witchcraft, and she's kind of getting nifty, like interested in it. But she also has a rose quartz crystal to promote healing that she thinks that Giles would like to have because it belonged to Jenny.
yes.
And she gives it to him, and you can see Giles is touched, but he's still
British.
Yes, British. He's
also
wounded.
British.
He's wounded. He's mourning.
Thank you. I'm just going to go have some tea.
Anyways, so Buffy is talking with Xander about the like bizarrity, the weirdness that is happening, and Xander opens his locker and like an arm reaches out of the locker and grabs him.
Zombie arm.
Zombie arm. Yep. All rotten and yeah. Although I'm wondering if this is not the same arm that they used for Fish Boy in the very next episode, because it looked scaly and green, just like the Go Fish Boys.
I feel like this arm has been reused multiple times in the Buffyverse.
The props department's just like, get the arm, Dad.
Yeah, like we have a budget. Let's not waste it on dead arms.
And so then, did you look in the locker when they open it again?
Yeah, the hanging. He has like something that he is hung up.
It's
like,
a hanging voodoo doll. It's a hanging smiley voodoo doll.
Yeah, and it's bizarre. Like, and because you're very much so meant to see it, like, because it's in the middle of the shot, and I'm just wondering, like, was that supposed to be a normal thing that teenage boys had in their lockers? Because when we were in school, if you strung up something like that in your locker, you were going to the guidance counselor.
Maybe it was a Principal Snyder effigy.
You were definitely going to the counselor then. Understandable, but to the principal you were going.
Yep, I would like to know more about what was the thought process behind this little voodoo. I was like, is that like a, you know,
Bad choice all around is what it is, Xander.
But it has a smiley face, like it was happy.
Oh, so this is related but not related. It's not related to this episode, but it's related to Xander. So, back in middle school or high school, I would be high school, at Scholastic Book Fair, I got a packet of Buffy the Vampire Slayer postcards, which I hung on to and never sent to anyone and never took out of their little packaging until the quarantine. And I felt in the year 2020, it was appropriate to start sending it out to all my Buffy loving friends. So Jasmine got some, yes. And
Too.
I also sent the Xander ones, which I think were two of them, to Pat Cowley. And like he said, like, oh, thank you so much, because he loves Buffy. That's how we became friends, because he didn't know what happened in an episode and he asked me about it. So I got this was, I don't know, however many months ago that I sent those out. And 2 days ago, I get a message from somebody I went to high school with and haven't talked to in years, that was apparently at Pat's apartment. He was like, I stopped by to visit Pat, and there are, like, Xander is everywhere. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he takes a picture. He has framed the postcard and has it sitting on his coffee table. Like, there's just Xander Harris, like, with a smoldering look, looking out.
I mean, Nicholas Brendan had a few years of looking really good.
He did. He definitely did. He has not aged well. I'm not sure if that's just due to his troubles, or I'd have to compare with his twin. If they just don't age well in general, because his twin's always been on the straight and narrow, from my understanding. So, but
Well, I mean, as I understand it, Nicholas Brendan experienced sexual assault and molestation during his like acting career, which is something that his brother did not.
correct. His brother didn't have really, like, he was on Buffy for at least that one episode where there were two Xanders, but I don't think his brother had any sort of acting career. I think he went that of like normal folks. Not that actors aren't normal, but you know what I mean.
Yep, us normal folks. But yeah, who weren't on like major TV shows.
Yes, yes.
So anyways, Giles is like super intrigued by the possibility of a ghost, which Xander describes as like as a poltergeist, as in I'm dead and mad as hell, or how?
I'm dead as hell and I'm not gonna take it anymore.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, that sounds like a poltergeist. And then we flash to Angelus, not Angel, Angelus, Spike, and Drusilla, who have moved into a mansion which has night blooming jasmine in the garden. Which night blooming jasmine is an aphrodisiac.
Of course it is.
I once had a guy message me and he said, I smelled some night blooming jasmine and thought of you. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. And then I'm like, oh, wait, what? Was that an entendre? A single or a double entendre?
Tell me what you mean, good sir. Yes, and so Spike's like, we're vampires. Why do we have these big windows? We gonna die. And Angel doesn't really like deal with that answer. He's just like, yeah, shut up, Spike. Or with Spike's concerns. And it's very clear that they are like really fighting over Drusilla at this point. Like, and Drusilla is a jerk. Like, I can't, like, she's supposed to very much so love Spike. I mean, obviously you would love your sire too, but the idea that she would have humanity because of love for Spike doesn't really play out, because she enjoys like the hell he is going through.
Yep. Which I think is the start of the Spike arc that we see that continues through to season 7. Like, or even actually into Angel. Like, there is a whole Spike arc that we need, and this is the start of it, where we are seeing that Spike has more emotional depth than other vampires that we see.
Yes. I think it's because he was a poet previously. As a human.
Poet.
A bloody terrible one, but you know. But before we got to Angel and Spike and Drusilla, the incident happened again where a janitor and a teacher who barely know each other, like enough that they kind of know each other's names. The scene plays out with the you know, don't walk away from me, bitch. And the janitor shoots at this woman, doesn't kill her, right? She goes to the hospital.
I think
His Giles intervenes.
No,
he gets there at the end.
He shoots her and she falls over the balcony. And like, so I don't know if she's dead or not, but like he actually completed the act of shooting her.
Yeah.
And
yeah, and Giles says, you just killed that woman.
Yeah. But Giles, who was reading in his office, hears a woman's voice saying, I need you. And he thinks it's Jenny. And so that's why he goes to investigate. So like, he's now convinced that it's Jenny that's haunting the school because he heard this woman's voice saying, now, I want to pose to you, do you think there's one ghost or two ghosts here?
Two.
I think there's two as well. They seem to be like, oh yes, it's just James's ghost, but I really think it's both of them.
Because the woman is being possessed as well, like very clearly, like, or like the second person is being possessed by a ghost. It's not one ghost possessing two, because I think they both need the closure, as we see at the end. I think James just gets the attention because he is the violent spirit, and the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and he's very, very squeaky.
So they're talking about it in the library about what's happened, and Giles is like, it's Jenny, and they're like, no, and he's like, yes it is, it's Jenny, and then he like scuttles off like, I am clearly right and you are clearly wrong, and it's just like,
yeah, I appreciate that he's like, oh yes, you should always challenge me, and when you think you're right, we should talk about that, except in occasions like this where I'm clearly like, and you are clearly wrong. And at that moment, like, they realize they are not talking to rational Giles. And how Giles delivers that line, like, how Anthony Stewart Head does, I guess that's his real name or whatever. It's so like, you feel it. It's so believable. He's not being mean. He's just in so much pain. And even Xander gets it mostly at that point, like, okay. So they just kind of like scuttle away and go talk amongst themselves because they realize their librarian is no longer going to be helpful.
So Willow looks up on the internet, school shootings, and finds, oh hey, in 1955, James Stanley killed his teacher, Grace Newman, on the eve of the Sadie Hawkins dance when she tried to break up their affair. And Buffy's like, oh yeah, I totally had this dream about the two of them, so that makes sense that it's,
And Buffy is just like, this James guy is a jerk, like, this is all his fault, which, if you're killing someone, yeah, you got a problem. He's also a victim here, though, because again, we have a situation of an adult taking advantage of a minor who, like, and not only is there that power dynamic, but also teacher and student. In the 50s, she definitely would have gotten away with it. Like, they would probably, get married once he graduated. Like, that's most likely what would happen if someone found out about it. But she blames James and was just like, this guy needs to go. Which I can also understand that response, because again, he did the murdering.
So then they
killed himself.
So they go to lunch, and then all of a sudden the food turns into snakes.
Yeah, this is when Cordelia's prattling along about the Sadie Hawkins dance. And I'm terrified of snakes. This is the worst scene for me to watch. Like your bug stuff. Ugh. Like and the spiders. I hate this. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I was in that lunchroom and that happened. I would have murdered everyone to get out of that room. Like, no. Mm-mm. I've seen a snake by me before and literally crawled up the person who is tallest, closest to me. No. No.
And so Cordelia gets bitten in the face. And so then you go outside, and Principal Snyder is basically like, hey, we live on a Hellmouth.
Mm-hmm.
What excuse are we going to use this time? And they're like, backed up sewer line. Okay, I can do backed up sewer line.
They say a very important thing, though, because he's like, I can't keep telling people this kind of stuff. They're going to figure it out. And it's like, well, we were told that you could handle this. And if you have a problem with that, you can bring that up with the mayor. And like Snyder changes. He's like, no, it's fine. And it's the first time that we hear that the mayor is in on something. And not only that, the mayor is scary.
Yeah.
Which is a big thing next year.
Yeah. The mayor is part of the seedy, dark underbelly that is the Hellmouth of Sunnydale. So this is, again, this is just shouting out to future season or next season, really. But
yeah.
So Willow says that since they've got a poltergeist, the only way to handle it is the only solution is the final solution. And Xander's like, nuke the school. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
And which, they do blow up the school next year.
Yep.
When there's snakes in the cafeteria, they blow up the school. So
yeah.
There's a giant snake in the in the high school.
I'm sure it's a little like disheartening though to Xander that's like after they no longer have to go back to the school that they get to blow it up, but he'll take what he can get.
So they're going to set up a molbic triangle.
Yeah, which Willow uses her gold stars from teaching.
Mm-hmm. And so basically, Buffy has to be in the center, and they make a triangle around her, and they are going to seal and exorcise the angry spirit.
While wearing scapulas, which apparently smell horrible because they have sulfur in them.
Yes, and by the way, it's actually not a scapula, it's a scapular. With like a scapula is your shoulder blade. A scapular is a religious, basically talisman, and it's usually with the Catholic Church, or different sects of the Catholic Church would wear these scapulars, which are like protection, talismans around their neck. But instead, Willow has gone on the internet and made scapulas. And, I'm guessing, again, this is back in the early days of the internet. Somebody went on the internet to try and figure out that Wiccan stuff or that pagan stuff. Mm-hmm. And it got, kind of bottled and bastardized along the way. So an interesting game of telephone. We end up with Willow making scapulas, not spatulas, and not scapulars.
Mm-hmm. The only other thing I can think of is they didn't want to piss off the Catholic Church. So they're like, we're just going to call them scapulas. Doctors will be fine with that, right? So they're getting ready to do all of that. And then we pan back to the mansion. The vamps have moved in, and Drusilla is digging in the garden. Talking about how she wants to, maybe she'll just crawl in there to avoid the sun. And Spike's like, you're going to get your dress all dirty. And then she's like, I'll go naked.
Mm-hmm.
And then Angel is there, and he's like, I like these plans. And Drusilla starts getting a vision. And Angelus goes like, I love it when she does this. and is like looking at Spike, and like Angel has pure excitement on his face, like, what's on the telly today?
And so Drusilla says that it's time for Angel to go to Buffy because Buffy is dancing with death. Dancing with death. And Angel starts like thrusting against Drusilla and caressing her and staring down Spike. And Spike is like, his eyes are welling up. Like, he is so upset watching the love of his afterlife, you know, allowing herself to be, you know, caressed and fondled by.
And not just that she's allowing that to happen in general, but that she would be aware, because she clearly enjoys the pain that's bringing Spike. Like, she is into it, which is not a healthy thing.
Yep.
At all. And
Angel's basically like, I'm over Buffy. I think I need to be here, you know, like with you and Drew, but really he's just taunting Spike, and Spike is like gripping his wheelchair arms, and you know, his neck is doing that thing that, like, you know, the little wobble.
Not like a turkey, but like I'm going to cry.
Yep. Meanwhile, Giles, you know, thinks that he's trying to summon Jenny, and Willow's like, okay, like, you know, you do that, we're trying to do other things. And then while they're chanting, or before they start chanting, they're all in different spots. Buffy sees the two ghosts dancing
to their song.
And then all of a sudden turns to, like, you know, destroyed face zombie boy. Cordelia is like, sees her face, you know, really start, like, where she had the snake bite, all of a sudden her entire face is like blistering up the sides. Excuse me. And then Willow starts sinking into the floor, where the again, that same arm grabs her and starts pulling her into the floor, and she screams for Giles, and Giles runs to her and helps pull her out of the floor. And she's like, Jenny would never be this mean. It's not Jenny. And he's like, yes, you're right. So they then start doing their, you know, exorcism. And it's like, did it work? And the answer is no, because wasps come and like envelop the school.
Yeah, they all get out without being stung, which is amazing. Mainly because Buffy kicks down a door so they can all get out. And they were just, and Xander is kind of just like, well, we're not going to school tomorrow. So they reconvene at Buffy's house because they can't go to the library. And apparently Joyce is nowhere to be found at midnight, because that's when they had to light things. Like, where is Joyce? Who knows? But people are drinking tea out of this nice tea set in her living room. And, you know, Buffy goes on a rant about how awful James is, about how, you know, he was selfish and he destroyed the one person that he loved in a moment of passion. And because Giles said he needs forgiveness, that's what he's looking for. That's why these things are playing out, like they're trying to resolve. And she's like, well, she doesn't deserve it. And Giles points out, we don't forgive people because they deserve it. You know, we do it because it's the human thing to do.
So Cordy puts the nail on the head. She says, over-identify much? Because Buffy is feeling that she destroyed her lover in an act of passion. In an act of passion, she has essentially killed the person that she loved, who was the much older, you know, individual. And then we hear,
Much, much older.
Much, much older. And then we hear James's voice saying, I need you, to Buffy. Now this again, we heard Grace's voice earlier. Now we hear James's voice, both of them saying, I need you. And Buffy returns to the school. And everyone realizes that she's gone, and they rush back to the school, and they're like, okay, but she's in there. And they think that she's going to be possessed by Grace.
Also, the school is enveloped by the wasps. They part so Buffy can get in, but then they go, whoosh.
Yep. So and they're like, well, there's no one else in there, so no one can shoot her, so she should be fine. And then Angel shows up because wasps don't want to sting vampires. And again, you think, and the Scoobies are saying, well, she's going to be possessed by Grace and shot, but no, they flipped it. You know, Grace possesses Angelus, and James possesses Buffy, and Buffy is the one that's possessed first.
Yeah.
And she starts talking, and Angel's like, what's going on? And he starts to mock her, but then as he walks closer, the Grace possession takes over. Now, this is the second time that we've seen in this season that Angelus has been possessed by another entity. Yeah. And he was able to knock out the other demon, the one that the possessed Ethan Rayne's group of friends, Ripper's group of friends. He was able to like knock that right out of his body, but the Grace ghost is so powerful that it completely possesses and infiltrates him, and they start talking. And they are acting out this scene, but it is, you know, so well matched up with what has happened between Buffy and Angel. And
I will say, like, I love David Boreanaz, and he is a top-notch actor. However, his acting as Grace, some of the lines are just a bit like so corny, like how he delivers them. Like, I remember thinking that back then, but not really caring because he's so pretty. And he's still pretty now, but I guess I've matured, and being pretty isn't enough that I don't, you know, be like, but it's just like, just some of the lines when he is like going with Buffy are very cheesy, I guess, when they're delivered. And when you were talking about Angelus knocking the other demon out of him, I've always kind of just thought of it as, because it was Angel as himself in his body, and then the demon has to just kind of sit there like stomping his foot in the background. So then when this other demon jumps in and Angel's like, have at him, he has almost 100 years of rage stored up that he can just unleash. But he doesn't have that for this ghost. He's been out and about, and it's just him in there now. Maybe Angel, like the soul part, gave him a little something extra. But
so talking about this line, right? And what we've got is basically 4 actors who are going through the same exact lines. So we have Sarah Michelle Gellar as Buffy, working opposite of David Boreanaz as Angel, and then Meredith Salinger as Grace, and Christopher Gorham as James.
Yes.
But what we see a lot is Sarah Michelle Gellar talking to Meredith Salinger. There is a few snippets of Christopher Gorham as James talking, and Angel responding, David was responding. But mostly we are seeing Sarah Michelle, who's such a good actress in this, and delivers the line so well. But I do love, they have Christopher Gorham giving the "don't walk away from me," and it goes right back to Buffy, and she goes, "bitch," right? Right at David Boreanaz's face.
Yep. And to be fair, the reason why David Boreanaz's line, or a couple of them, might have seemed so off is because Sarah Michelle Gellar is so dang good. like you feel everything, like everything throughout your whole body of all of the characters that she is embodying in that moment.
Yep.
So you have to be completely perfect for it not to almost sound corny if you're opposite her. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but so good. So Sarah Michelle Gellar, well, Buffy as James, we find out during this that it's a misfire. James never meant to shoot Grace. Like going like this, and when he's thinking about putting the gun down, it fires.
Yep.
And which explains why he kills himself. But it hits her. She might not have died from the gunshot, but she falls over the balcony onto the school steps.
Yep.
And that definitely kills her.
And so at this point, James, or now Buffy as James, is so grief-stricken that they go to the school music room to commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
But because Angel is a vampire, Grace, who has been stuck in this loop over and over again that ends for her at the death at the balcony, is able to maintain possession and to go and grant that forgiveness that James desperately needs. And to say that, she did love him. And so, again, like, this is one of the problematic things, because we've got this older teacher with a student. And yes, it's a senior student and a young teacher, but that's no excuse. It's not okay. Yeah. And then we've got much older Angel and really young Buffy, having these conversations. And I mean, at least part of me is thinking that Grace told James, this has to be over. Like, this has to be over. This is not healthy. This is not right. You need to have a normal life. And he's like, I don't want a normal life. I want you. Like, at least she had some moral, like, reckoning or understanding. She was like, let's end this. And
well, those are conversations that Buffy and Angel have had as well. Like about how she deserves normal as a Slayer can have life, and how he can't give that to her. So it's a really tough, and so the conversation that the Grace ghost has with the James ghost at the end, where she forgives him, also sounds a lot like an adult talking to a child. Like the way she's talking, it's like,
I apologize. I made you think that I stopped loving you. I never stopped loving you. Like,
it's very, when you have done something wrong and have been sent, or not even, like if your parent overreacts and sends you to your room and they realize that they were the ones who actually did something wrong, and they come and talk to you. Like, that is the tone there I got. I did not get a lovers thing, which is problematic.
So as they are kissing and making their apologies, this light starts shining above them, and then two lights come, one from Buffy's body and one from Angelus's body, and there's one that's orange and one that's purple, and they meld together and they go into the light together, which again is why I feel like this has to have been two separate ghosts, two separate entities. They have different colors.
Well, not only that, but once the script ends, Grace continues it. Like, the spirit would have to be there to do that.
Yep. And so, like, they're continuing to kiss and they stop, and Buffy looks up at Angel and she says, Angel, and he just is revolted and runs away.
It takes a minute though, and like, to have that reaction. It's not until she speaks, like, they are gone, Buffy speaks, and then he has that reaction, because before that he's like, oh yeah, smoochy because Angelus is still obsessed with Buffy.
Yep.
So I don't think he was upset about the smoochy part.
Yeah. And so Buffy's talking with Giles, they're like, oh great, school can start tomorrow. Boo. And then Giles checks in with her, and she's like, James picked me. James identified with me. And then she's like, I don't understand why Grace would forgive him, but ultimately it doesn't matter, because the forgiveness, doesn't really need a reason. And then we're back at the mansion, and Angelus is just scrubbing at his body in the fountain, saying he was violated, he was infested with love, and Spike is kind of mocking him.
Spike says this line that I love, which is, they say when you draw blood, you've exfoliated enough. The fact that a vampire is saying exfoliated even is fantastic.
Just Spike. So, he says he needs a real vile kill to cleanse himself of the purity of love. And Drusilla invites Spike, and Angelus is like, nope, he's not welcome. They have to travel light, and then taunts Spike one last time, says try to have fun without me. And at that point, Spike he makes sure they're gone, and then he stands up from his chair and he kicks it away, and he reveals that he is back.
And I mean, his face is completely healed too at this point. It's been
at the beginning of the episode, there's still some light redness where the burn has been, but it's just a very light redness there, from where before he was completely scarred.
Yeah.
So he is,
he's back, and he is pissed. But he's also smart. Spike in a lot of ways is much smarter than Angelus. And that shows not only the fact that Spike has killed 2 other Slayers, which I don't no, that is mentioned, but he's killed 2 other Slayers, something Angel's never been able to do. Not that he hasn't tried, he just doesn't have the cunning that Spike has. Angelus only takes on fights in general that he knows he can win. Spike just goes for it, which does not seem like the smart move, but for Spike it usually is, because he does his homework beforehand.
I also feel like Spike, he is, I don't know how to say this, Spike is passionate. And his passion project is killing Slayers.
Yes.
But he gets a thing in his head, and he's going to figure it out, and he's gonna work it, but that is Spike's drive. Spike is passionate.
And he also loves life. He hated his human life. When we get flashbacks to it, that poor man, everyone was so mean to him. He was in upper crust society. So I mean, yeah, boo-hoo, the upper 1% or whatever. But Spike was really mocked by his peers, and his love wasn't returned. He didn't really get to start living until he became a vampire. And for whatever reason, the demon that got put into Spike's soul, into Spike, really seems to gel with that. I don't know if when the demon was in Demon Land, if it too was made fun of by the other demons and was just the black sheep, and so it found this body and is really enjoying its time out and about. Because Spike also is constantly the vampire that's I don't want the world to end. I like Happy Meals walking around. Why are all the other vampires trying to ruin my fun?
Yep. All right, so this was I Only Have Eyes for You, which was in a Monarch episode, and now we're moving on to a full-on monster of the week.
And I have one thing to say to you, Jasmine. Go fish.
Go fish.
Go fish. Yeah, this is an interesting one. And did we talk about it on the show within the past 2 weeks about how you were on the swim team? Or was that just an us conversation?
It might have been another conversation. Yes, I was on the swim team. I was on the intramural swim team it was called the Gators. And we had the high school swim team, which was the Comets. But yeah, I started the Gators in the 5th grade, and I finished my sophomore year of high school, I think. And
The Gators make a much better sounding name for a swim team than the Comets. Comets and water are not going to do anything.
I know, but also our colors were green, whereas the Comets were blue and white. So
Yeah.
Um,
So with Go Fish, we open up on the beach, and there's a party going down. And we have Willow and Xander and Cordelia huddled around a fire on the beach, which just seems like the most California thing in the world to me. That is probably the biggest bonus I think of living in California, at least according to movies and TV shows. But Buffy is there, but she's off, separated, and we find out quickly that they're at the beach for a victory party for the swim team, and Xander doesn't get it because he was like, the swim team? That's not a real team.
Points out that last month Dodd was the freak with the jicama breath, and waxes his back, and he wins a few meets, and suddenly he's cool. And Cordy's like, yeah, well, like my cheerleading pep squad was wasting pep on losers, so.
And Xander was like, hey, we're leading all the other schools in a high mortality rate. We're number one. We're number one. Which everyone assumes he is chanting, we're number one, about the swim team.
Yep. So Cameron Walker comes over and starts talking to Buffy, and he's, spouting poetry about the, Mother Nature and the way that the ocean looks so eternal, and she's like, I was gonna go with big and wet. And he's flirting with her, but he seems semi-normal. Meanwhile, Dodd McCalvey, and Gage Petronzi, are bullying Jonathan.
Not just bullying, they are like half drowning him.
Yeah.
Like, it is not far to say that this is water torture, like what they are doing. Like, Jonathan's screaming for help.
Yes.
And everyone's just standing around laughing because high school is enough.
And Buffy goes over and rescues Jonathan, and Dodd has a shark tattoo on his skin, and like they're scared off of Buffy, and Jonathan's like, I can handle it myself, I can take care of it.
He reacts just like Xander, basically. What's important to note, I think, in the reaction of the boys who are around during the bullying are very different than like when Buffy in the movie gets her butt grabbed by her boyfriend's friend. Like, they don't all suddenly turn on Buffy in the show. They, Gage is like, come on, dude, let's just, go for a swim or walk down the beach, whatever. And they go off. And Cameron is still interested in Buffy. Like, he also doesn't say anything to disparage his friends, but he doesn't do, like, it's not a perfect thing by any means. Like, it's still very problematic. It's a step, though, from where that god-awful movie had been.
Yeah.
God awful for how they treated women.
So then Gage, who is played by Wentworth Miller.
Yep, you'll remember him from Prison Break, depending on how old you are.
Yes, and oh my goodness, like I actually have to talk about a little bit later about that. But Wentworth Miller as Gage says, what is that foulness? And there's a really bad smell in the air. And then we hear this like ripping noise. And then we see Dodd's skin on the ground, like just his skin, and this like sea creature, like fish man, walking away into a sewer pipe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so the next day, Willow's teaching class, and she's like, "Yay, everyone! Great pie charts." And Gage is just playing solitaire, where he has downloaded a skin for the cards of naked women on the deck.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just very much like, yeah, I'm not doing the work. Like, I'm on the swim team. That's all that matters. And Snyder shows up, and one tells Willow, "You're going to keep teaching our class for free."
Yep. Yep.
we've
Through
decided
finals.
we've decided not to hire someone, free student labor instead.
Mm-hmm.
And then tells her that she, without telling her, but tells her that she needs to change Gage's grade from an F to a D,
Mm-hmm.
because he can't be on academic probation because the swim team is swim meet is coming up for state finals. So Buffy's coming to school. She's in a car with Cameron, and he is just blathering on, and she's not interested.
Bored out of her mind.
She's so bored. And she was like, "Yeah, this is comfortable. I'm gonna go." And then he's like, "Are you wearing a bra?" And she's like, "Excuse me? Like, where did that come from?" And then she's like, "I'm gonna go." And he locks the doors to his rape mobile,
Mm-hmm.
because what kind of car locks from the inside? Locks like the passenger door from the inside.
Well, my thought is because it doesn't have 4 doors, it only has 2. I think it's a parental lock. Like if you have kids in the back, I think it's a parental lock.
Usually with 4 doors, the passenger one, when you turn the handle, it unlocks in the inside, but in the back it's a parent lock. So you're thinking it was like a parental lock on just the...
That's my guess. Also, the window's open. You can just slide out, but that you don't want him. I think it was a crank window, but who knows? It has power locks, might have power windows. You don't want to be going out of the window and him to start putting it up.
Oh my God. And then he's like, "I'm not gonna hurt you." And then tries to grab her. So she twists his arm and smacks his face.
And Snyder appears.
And then they're at the nurse's office, and he's like, "She was leading me on." And she's like, "How?" And he's like, "Well, just look at the way she dresses," which is such a
rapist thing to say.
Yes. Thank you. I couldn't even get it out. I was so enraged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so he says that, and she's like, "The hell?" Because like she is within the dress code, whatever Sunnydale's dress code is, because she's allowed into the school. And the coach comes in, and they're all like, why they haven't separated them? Why they're all in the nurse's office? Who knows? And like again, Buffy's told again that she needs to dress like she's not going to a nightclub.
Yep.
And I was just like, look, creepy old man who is the coach, back off.
And so Coach Marin tells Nurse Greenlee, Ruthie, "Take care of my boy," and then tells Buffy that she needs to dress better. And Snyder only cares about, whether or not the swim team's okay. And Buffy is like ranting to her friends afterwards, and they're just like not responding.
Mm-hmm. And an important thing, the coach sends Cameron to the steam room, which we find out is important later. But yeah.
But like, I'm annoyed that like her friends are not saying, "No, you're right. This guy sexually assaulted you. Like, you were well within your rights to break his effing nose." Like, they're just kind of staring, and she's like, "Okay, what's happening?" And they're like, "We found Dodd's human remains, and now we're looking for a demon that only eats, human insides and not the skin." And Buffy has a hilarious crack about any demons with high cholesterol. Mm-hmm. And Giles looks at her, and she's like, "You're gonna get it later."
Mm-hmm. that is a funny joke.
Yes. So then Xander's going looking for a drink, and he bumps into Cameron, and Cameron's being a douchebag, and Xander's just like, my friend Buffy beat you up. And he says, I love it when you guys mess with her.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, because he specifically says, I guess Buffy's not on your privileges list.
Yep.
And I was just like, good one. Cameron's on his way to the cafeteria, which is supposed to be closed, and Cameron says, not to me.
Yep.
So he goes off as
a break in, and then you hear a scream, and Xander rushes towards the scream, and he finds Cameron's skin on the ground, and then the fish monster, or the gill monster is what they were calling it.
Mm-hmm.
And he runs away.
We don't know, like, it just cuts. It just cuts, and then he's in the library. This is one of the few times where I'm just like, damn it, Joss. I wanted something that said, how Xander got away. Like, did he just go, ah? And the monster's like, I'm going to go find some water.
So Cordelia sketching. Cordelia is actually a pretty good sketcher. Like,
she must have been taking lessons from Angel.
Mm-hmm. And
that's how Angel makes money on the side. Yeah.
Nighttime on the boardwalk.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's still a vicious killer, but he realizes he has a talent that he can make some cash off of.
So yeah, we find out that Dodd was the best swimmer on the team, followed by Cameron, and that Gage is the third best. So they're like, okay, well, we've lost Dodd, we've lost Cameron, so let's protect Gage. Willow is off to interrogate Jonathan.
She's gonna crack him like an egg.
Yep. Like the bad eggs. Yep. And Xander overhears Marin and Snyder, Coach Marin and Snyder, saying that they're going to hold auditions or for tryouts. Tryouts, not auditions, tryouts for the swim team because they don't have enough. And this was after Xander was made to feel a little bit useless by the group, where they're like, we're on this duty, Buffy's on protection duty, like Willow's on research duty, and Xander, they're like, Xander, if you need someone, like, go practice running like a man instead of running like a woman, like really putting him down. So this kind of incites him to want to do something on his own.
Which also, what the hell does that mean, running like a woman? But
yep. Especially because, Buffy runs like a woman. runs like a badass woman. So
just got some speed.
So Buffy is shadowing Gage, and Gage sees her and is like, WTF, like, and then he's being a dick to her, and walks away. And while he's walking away, talking about her being, such a bitch, like a psycho bitch and a head tripper, and jealous.
Because apparently Cameron has like been running his mouth about Buffy, and I mean, all Gage has seen is Buffy. Well, the rumors that Cordelia started, the incident at the beach, and then she almost breaks his friend's nose.
Yep.
So, and the excuse she first gives is, I'm a swim groupie, and then she goes and tells him about the murders, and because he doesn't buy the swim groupie thing, which I give him some credit for that one. But he doesn't believe that he is next on this list and that this tiny girl can save him.
Yep. Except that Angelus turns on his vamp face and bites him, intending to like sire him. He's like, I want to add to my team. And instead he bites him and then like spits out his blood, and Buffy comes in.
Gage starts yelling for her.
Yep. He's like, help me. So she shows up, he throws Gage at Buffy and runs away spitting, like blah, blah. It's so bad, in my mouth, get it out.
Bad blood, blah.
And so Buffy, he's like, was that the thing that was trying to kill me? She's like, nope, that's another thing. That's something else. We have lots of something else's at Sunnydale. And he's like, would you walk me home? And he's like all like cowed little puppy. And so she says, okay. And so the next day they're watching
popcorn.
With popcorn, they're watching, and Gage is like stopping in the middle of the pool to wave at Buffy. He's so like, oh yay, my bodyguard is here.
Yeah. And at that moment, like, I really liked Gage. Because he was just like, screw it, she's gonna save my hide.
Friend! New friend! Be my friend!
I'm your number one fan!
And Cordelia like looks over and she does one of the from the ground up pans, and she sees legs and Speedo and stomach and nipples, and she's like, ooh,
I'm really into this.
And then she sees Xander and she's like, Xander? And everyone's like, Xander? And
she's initially pissed.
What?
She's initially pissed because she thinks Xander's going to embarrass her.
Yep. And he's like, I'm undercover, but he's got the little boogie board hiding his Speedos, and then he's hiding his butt with his swim cap. And let me tell you,
he has no butt.
When I was on the swim team, it was really weird. We had the guys in Speedos. We had to take swim pictures, and the photographer always made the guys pose so that their arms specifically covered up the Speedo, so it looked like all the guys on the swim team were naked. Like, just the way they sat with their legs. It was this entire line of looks like naked boys. And both my brothers were on the swim team, and I'm pretty sure we still have those somewhere. For blackmail you.
I think you should have those photos blown up and sent to their wives. Happy birthday! Use at your discretion.
But oh no, it was awful. Like, because we were almost like, we're like, why are they making them pose that way? That's so awkward. They would have them sit at the edge of the diving board and just use their arms to position just so that you could not see that they were wearing Speedos. But yeah, so poor Xander and his wee Speedos. Yeah. And he's getting ready to dive into the water. And they're like, what about Jonathan? Willow, you interrogated Jonathan. And she's like, yeah, he just peed in the pool. And they're like, oh.
Xander jumps into pool.
Yep, and then Xander, and they go, ew. Xander has now jumped from the pool.
Yep. Which, I mean, if you're in a public pool of any sort and you think you're not swimming in some piss, I don't know what kind of mental gymnastics you have done, but there's pee in that water.
So, if you can smell chlorine in a pool, that is because there is pee in the pool. Like, the chlorine in regular levels does not have a scent. It has a scent when it's working to clean up all of the other chemicals from like sweat and dirt and pee. So the more chlorine smelling it is, the more chances there are of pee.
I mean, do you remember walking into the pool room at our high school? Because as soon as you went in there, the smell of chlorine hit you in the face and hit your eyeballs. Like, I remember feeling it in my eyes.
And again, there were lots of small children that used that pool and peed in it.
I'm not even... Yes.
Buffy is waiting for Gage to exit the locker room because Xander's like, tag,
you
they're actually, so first of all, Xander is in the sauna with everybody. And you see like claws in a grate, like in the sauna room, like outside the sauna room. And then Xander's like, okay, like I'm peacing out, tag, you're it. And then Buffy hears Gage screaming, and she runs in and she finds like the fish monster. And then Gage starts crying out in pain, and he like rips open his chest, the skin off of his chest, and then his hand starts like, the skin rips off of his hand, and there's a claw underneath, and we realize that Gage has become one of the fish monsters, that all these fish monsters are actually the swim team.
Yep. They're not being eaten by them, they are them.
Yep.
Oh, and it should also be noted that Xander's actually made the swim team. He's actually really good.
Yep.
It might have made more sense if Joss Whedon or whomever told Nicholas Brennan that, you know, he could continue to be fit for this part, but whatever.
So, as Buffy's fighting the monsters, one of them bites her on the arm, and then Coach Marin shows up, and the monsters flee. And like he just shows up and they run away. And they go to the nurse's office, and Giles is there, and she tells Marin that the swim team are the monsters, that they're not dead. And so we start splitting up. Buffy and Giles go hunting in the sewers. Xander goes back to the sauna. He's supposed to find out where the steroids are. Where the steroids are so we can find out.
Willow breaks into their medical records or into their records and sees that all of these boys have classic steroid symptoms.
Yep, and she's going to interrogate Nurse Greenlee. Except Nurse Greenlee is like stalking Coach Marin, and she's telling him that they have to stop what they're doing. And he's like, I just need to get the mix right. So they think it's the nurse, but it turns out it's the nurse and the coach together. And then she's like, we don't even know where they are. And he's like, of course we do. And he throws her down a hole into the sewers, basically. I am very confused as to what like the structure is here. Like,
yeah,
I have not witnessed random pools that have random like holes into sewers. Like, but anyways, he goes and says that he's feeding his team. The team's got to eat.
Yep. So the coach and the nurse actually make the 5th and 6th faculty members that will have died since Buffy has started at Sunnydale.
Is that including Grace?
Since she has started, that does not count.
Okay.
Because Grace died 40 some years beforehand.
Yep. So yeah, and okay, so let's. I want to see if I can do this. Who are the ones that died? Her science teacher in season 1. Jenny Calendar. The teacher from just this last episode, who was shot by the janitor. Who am I missing? Besides from
Principal Flutie.
Principal Flutie, eaten by hyenas.
And then they're 5 and 6, like these two.
Okay. That was a fun little quiz. I can't believe I missed Principal Flutie.
He's like the first one. That's
yeah. Okay, so the swim team eats Nurse Greenlee. Meanwhile, Xander finds out that the steroids is in the steam, and he like rushes back and he's like, oh God, I'm gonna turn into a fish monster. And they're like, oh, you only had 1 exposure. And he's like, no. And they're like, 2 exposures? He's like, no. And they're like, 3? And it's, yeah. So he's worried he's gonna turn into the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was like, if you look, it's very similar.
Yeah.
So Buffy goes to talk to the coach, and the coach is basically like, here's my gun. And also at the fall of the Soviet Union, some, things came, like, I don't even understand. It's just very weird. But apparently,
blame it all on the Soviets.
Yep, and that they were doping their swim team, their Olympic swim team. And I'm like, really, the Olympic swim team, and not like their,
Gymnastics?
Well, no, I was gonna go with like their Navy.
Soldiers.
Like not like their, their Marines or something like that. No, their Olympic swim team.
I mean, the Soviets, to be fair, were crazy, specifically about their gymnasts. Like, they were very into their gymnasts. So if they were going to be doping anyone, I would think them, not swimmers, but.
So, like, he tells her that he has to take care of his boys, and he like forces her at gunpoint into the hole, and he's like, they've already fed, but boys have other needs.
So he's basically throwing Buffy into a sewer to be gang raped by a bunch of fish demons while he watches.
Yeah.
This man belongs nowhere around children. He drugs them. He is active in rape culture. He is also active in helping his his swim demons rape.
Yep.
And do you have something to say about
swim
fish rape?
No, I'm gonna back off of the fish rape tangent.
At the same time that this is going down, Xander goes into the locker room, and Cordelia is waiting out by the pool and sees a fish demon come out and jump into the pool and is swimming, and she has this very nice heart-to-heart with the the fish demon that she thinks is Xander. And she says that they don't have to break up. She'll do everything she can to make sure he has a good quality of life, even if that, like, maybe some bath toys. And Xander at that point goes, "Hey, that's not me," because he's fully dressed and standing next to her. But it's a very sweet moment for Cordelia.
We are going to have to talk soon about the differences between demons and monsters, because I believe that the Hellmouth actually has a differentiation between what's a monster, i.e. a werewolf, and what is a demon. Like, so
it's definitely a fish monster, but it's more fun to say fish demon.
Yeah.
Even though they're called gill monsters.
Okay.
That's the official lexicon of the Buffy Whedonverse.
Okay, gill monsters. I like it. All right. So Xander realizes that Buffy hasn't come back, so he goes looking for her. He meets up with the coach, fights him for the gun, knocks him out. Good job, Xander. And then this is the part that I want to talk about. So Buffy is fighting off the rapey gill monsters, right? She says it's going to be so bad for her reputation that she did it with the entire swim team. And Xander reaches down through the hole towards Buffy and says, "Give me your hand." If you've watched Prison Break, there is a scene where Wentworth Miller is in the ceiling during like a riot, and he reaches his hand down through a hole in the ceiling and says, "Give me your hand," to the nurse, and it's like identical shot.
Oh, wow.
So, but of course Prison Break came after.
Oh yeah,
so
much later.
I'm wondering if they
like that, the actor plays Gage is very clearly like he's probably a teenager during this. Like, he looks like he's in high school. In Prison Break, he is a man. Like, ooh la la, he is a man.
Oh.
There's a difference.
He is also in The Flash.
Is he?
Yeah. He plays it's not Ice, is it Mr. Ice or something like that? Or it's not Mr. Freeze, or it's like Captain Cool or something like that. Like, he He plays a guy with an ice gun.
Okay. So one thing that I realized with this episode, Xander is always saving Buffy when there's water around. Like, she drowns, he saves her. She's about to be gang raped by gill monsters, he saves her. Like, if there's, maybe that's why he's such a good swimmer. Like, he just has a water thing that Joss Whedon has decided upon. We'll have to keep, like, an eye open for if there's any more water stuff with Xander.
Uh-huh.
But he
Cold, by the way. Leo Snart.
That's definitely better than the Mr. Cool or whatever.
Captain Cold.
Not much better.
From The Flash. His last name is Snart.
That's a name.
That is a name.
Snart. Sounds like what a dog does when they like go, ahee, Snart.
So, yeah. But anyways, Coach falls into the water. They try to save him. They can't. Coach gets eaten by his kids. Next day, there's a lovely little recap. Everyone's going around, and Xander's like, we're all going to get plasma treatment.
Yeah, he has quite the busy day with the plasma treatments and like a bunch of other stuff that he has to. Oh, he has makeup tests to do. Yeah, busy day for the Xander.
Yep. And meanwhile, the gill monsters swim out into the ocean because they're going home, which makes sense because Cameron was waxing poetic about how he loves the mother that is the ocean.
Also, weird thing, Giles said that the school had called animal control on the gill monsters, and I'm like, animal control? You think animal control is going, what? Like, and that the gill monsters heard that animal control was coming and then they swam out to the sea. That part I can believe, but why would you call animal control?
Yeah.
If you had a bear in the sewer, I understand.
I think that's it for us for this week. Next week, we are discussing Becoming, parts 1 and 2.
I have a fun fact about Go Fish.
Okay.
So Go Fish is the last time that we hear the prologue at the beginning of Buffy episodes.
Really?
It's the very last time we hear it. So no more. If you're watching along on like Hulu or wherever, like you will not hear that anymore, which I'm a little sad about. I mean, it's annoying if you're marathoning, but if you can skip it, it's great to hear at the beginning of your watch-a-thon.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you for another week of Just Jossin, Muckos.
Yes. And we'll be finishing up season 2 next week.
Yep.
Oof. All right.
We'll see you then.